please.
Isn't that something?
Thank you, Minneapolis. Good stuff.
Like that!
Time for two more.
Big boy's back!
What in the ham fat is going on with you guys?
Got too many men out there! The Vikings.
You lucky suckers.
You want to change the conversation, win some games.
Super Bowl, homeboy.
Hey, what's up, KFAN? It's 84, man. Y'all stay tuned live for the hottest man in the world, PA, Paul Allen. Yes, sir.
Here we are on a chilly Monday in the neighborhood being FM 100.3, KFAN. I'm Paul Allen, Nordo produces. Good morning. Corey Chavous was all right, 3-2. Corey Chavous was an 11-year NFL DB, including 4 years and 14 picks with the Minnesota Vikings. Nice enough to begin festivities, analyzing football. And let's begin talking about these guys.
Snap the golf, steps up, good pocket, throws in the middle of the field, picked off! Jeremy Chin's got it! That's it! Celebrate like it's 1991! We're going to the NFC Championship game!
Washington Commanders Radio Network, PA.
Chavous.
Good morning, Corey. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing this morning, Paul?
Good. Thank you very much for the time. When people say to play with a quiet mind, that's exactly who Jaden Daniels is, right? I mean, he plays with and at peace and is just terrific, don't you think?
Yeah, he's always been a good fourth quarter quarterback, and that's something that, or even a second half quarterback, and that goes all the way back to his freshman year at Arizona State. And I think you saw it even more at LSU. You remember the last minute victory against Alabama when I think they won 32-31 down in Baton Rouge. And then even before that, you saw other games against Florida State where he led them to a comeback and then they ended up losing by 1 point in the first game of the season. I was at that game a couple of years back. Then I saw him. I went to go see him play against Missouri, and he led a fourth quarter comeback against them. So he's one of those players who performs at his best during that time of the game.
When the Detroit Lions lost Amik Robertson, all right, Louisiana Tech go crazy. Third play of the game. I mean, I know it's a team game. I know we had a lot of game left to play. We heard the Jeremy Chin highlight, and Goff had some problems during the course of the game. But when they lost to Amik Robertson, the whole thing was just stretched too far because they couldn't stop anything. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with game plan, Paul. I mean, I think that when you lose a player like him, potentially that can change your game plan when you go into backup corners. And then really their defensive back depth was okay with the return of Melifonwu, but I still felt like that their outside guys, because he had such a good performance having moved to the outside, I think that compromised them a little bit. Now, when it comes to how they approach the game offensively, I didn't agree with it. In my opinion, you slow that game down and you make them stop Gibbs first. And then it was just too many instances during that game where they were doing unnecessary things. And I think that compromised the defense even more. If you're stretched in on defense, shorten the game. The same way they did against Green Bay on the road. They've had several games. The Indianapolis game on the road was another example. You had to go into that game, I think, if you're Detroit, and thinking you're on the road simply because you were compromised defensively. And I guess maybe they felt like they could drum up the same energy as they did in that last game of the season against you guys. But I think it was too many teams that were competitive in your division, and that's a big reason why they had nothing left when the playoffs came. It was just too competitive of a division all year.
Well, then Amik Robertson goes down, and he's playing positions that he's a corner safety, he's a hybrid, but I mean he's playing a lot more than he normally plays, and he's coming through. I mean, Amik probably had the game of his life when the Vikings were there to close the season against Justin Jefferson, and Amik and Justin. I mean, of course you know this, but they go back to a 2016 LSU football camp. Robertson at Louisiana Tech, then Justin ends up at LSU. I mean, those two have battled each other since they were teenagers.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Amik is a confident player. I thought he had played well with the Raiders. I felt like they just didn't want to pay him, and they ended up getting him relatively cheap in Detroit. But he's been a productive player. He's one of the best interception artists in college football during that time when he was in school. And that hasn't necessarily translated, but his physical play has. He's a good tackler. He can play nickel. He can play outside. He's very versatile. And so I felt like his loss did demoralize them because he got the game ball in the game against you guys.
And
against the Vikings.
Corey Chavous, former Minnesota Vikings safety, came into the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals and played some DB. 11 years in the NFL, longstanding member of the Love Covenant. Spent 4 years with the Minnesota Vikings, had 14 interceptions during those 4 years. Lastly, here on this game is when 40 came in for the Lions defense. I mean, I kind of know the Lions inside and out from a personnel standpoint from doing their games. And I had to get to ProFootballReference.com to figure out who 40 was. And how about my man Maurice Norris? I mean, he played one defensive snap the entire year, and now he's playing half the game in the divisional round. That's just the elasticity, the stretchability, the elastic nature of this Lions defense just got stretched too far, didn't it?
Yeah, I think you're really banging on this Lions defense. I'm going to go back to the other side of the ball. I mean, in Norris, give him credit for coming in. I thought he played pretty well, but I just felt like that again.
Yeah,
they couldn't stop the running game early in the game. It was 7-3,
right? And
the 3rd and 2, when they decided to go empty on 3rd and 1, I believe it is, on about the 15-yard line, and Goff gets strip sacked. Now, I'm not saying that in Glasgow got beat on the play and all of that stuff. That can happen during the game, right? And that's the way they played aggressively, and they knew that they were going to come back and go for it if they didn't get it there. But instead, why not ride the hot hand there? The whole entire first quarter, it was Jahmyr Gibbs, and the whole goal should have been, let's keep Daniels and this offense off the field to protect the defense. And so, yeah, I mean, their words stretched pretty thin, but, I mean, you knew that going into the Minnesota game. You knew that going into their last month of the season, they were stretched thin on defense.
That's an elite point, because the Lions, from when they lost Aiden Hutchinson into the Vikings game way back round number 1, then Aleem McNeil and Malcolm Rodriguez, and Carlton Davis, all these players they were losing. You're right, because things changed with them. I mean, the drives became 8, 9, 10 plays, 70-ish, 80-ish yards, kill the clock, protect the defense. Then Montgomery comes back, so it's been good for them, but they have to figure out the balance, and Gibbs was on fire, and he was on the field less than he had been of late. And then, they after that 5-interception game Goff had on Sunday Night Football, they won the game, which is good, but they stopped stretching the field. They stopped going down the field with the deep pass, and then when they needed to get intermediate or deep against that specific Washington rush, you're right. I mean, Goff came up short, man.
He did. I thought he made a number of good throws in the game, but it only takes 2 bad ones to change the game in a playoff game. That's why you go into these games. People wonder why Josh Allen's statistics yesterday is 16 out of 22, 150-something, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But he ran for 2 touchdowns. Same thing with when you look at what Patrick Mahomes, very efficient game. You have to change the way you play in the playoffs. You got to stop the run. You have to try to find a way to run the football on offense, stop the other team's run, which is exactly why I was surprised to a large degree that I thought the Vikings would have been perfect in that scenario going into the playoffs because they could stop the run. And that was really what got the Rams into trouble yesterday. Surely they have a quick front four, and those guys can get after the passer. But I think they have some problems when you just decide to get physical and they can get moved a little bit in the run game, particularly against that offensive line of the Eagles.
Now, interior defense, specifically the tackles in the interior defensive line. Yeah, the Rams with all those young studs. The Eagles are thick and fast and deep. The Commanders, man, they're getting run out of Cleveland Farrell. I mean, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen. Now we got Cleveland Farrell and Jerzon Newton, the Illinois rookie who we liked around here, blowing things up. You played with the Williams Wall, Pat and Kevin. How important is it to have that as the interior, whether it's run stopping and pass rushing or whatever it is? How important is it to have that as your defensive identity?
Well, it's everything, especially for a guy like me. Most of the time when I moved to safety, I wasn't playing off the hash. You know, I go into the game and people always wonder why I watch so much film. Well, I'm watching film on how the guards pull. I got to read the triangle. I got to be there for my mic. I got to make all the calls and get everybody lined up. It's me and the mic back. We're aligning the defense the same way the center and the quarterback are. And we're moving those defensive linemen because they are using us as their eyes. So a lot of times if we had a bullet and make a bullet call backwards over weak or backwards over strong or down right or down left, you're allowing that Mike backer to tell those linemen where to go because he knows where that extra free hitter is coming in at. So that's why you might give a down right or down left call. Then the Mike moves those guys around accordingly, and that's why we move the front. So the more that they can handle up front, even from a mental aspect, that makes a big difference. And then when you have guys like those guys who were smart, you know, Kevin started off for us playing defensive end. You announced that rookie year where he had 10 sacks at defensive end, which is incredible. And then an athlete like Pat Williams, who this guy, I mean, he was like one of the best athletes I've ever played with. So when you have that type of flexibility inside and they can take up blockers and you have to double team at least one of them, that's going to give the opportunity for the Mike to either spill it to me or I hammer it back to him. You don't get as much of that now without the fullbacks, but you do get a lot of that with the tight ends as the lead blockers. So those defensive linemen like that are incredibly important for the entire defense.
Hardcore football. Chavous.
Do you have a side here? I mean, like, I've never known you to have like a favorite team, childhood favorite team that you just like live and die with when you're watching the postseason and stuff like that. Maybe you do, but the Kansas City Chiefs winning 3 in a row. I mean, it's like people are getting loud that they don't want the Chiefs to win again 3 consecutive. I'm not necessarily on the other side of it. But I don't mind dynasties. You know, I don't mind having a defined target at which to shoot every single year. What do you think about all that?
I think when I'm listening to Paul Allen and Pete Burchick announce the game, you know, with Ben Lee, I know what I'm going to get. So you know what you're going to get from the Chiefs. You're going to get excellence. But at the same time, you want the other team to have a fair advantage, Paul. And when you look at the game the other day, I felt like the referees got too involved in the game.
Right.
You cannot allow the referees to have such an impact because when 2 guys hit helmets, and I've been in those positions before, like I said, most of the time I was in the box in my career for a good portion of it, and there's plenty of times where I'm hitting and smacking helmets where I'm only in danger. Me and the other guy that run into each other. When you have 2 Texans banging into each other and you give a personal foul to the other team and give them 15 yards, and they're already the champions, you can't do that. Then you have another guy make a legal hit when he comes free, and Will Anderson Jr., and he gets 15 yards for that penalty. That frustrates me as a viewer. So I just want to see them get beaten as opposed to getting helped with unnecessary calls. You can't beat them and beat the referee.
Right.
And I give credit, I give credit to Houston for holding their tongues in the post game, but I wouldn't have even held the tongue. I would have just went ahead and said what I needed to say because that was inexcusable. You can't miss those calls in a playoff game. And I was very frustrated watching that game. Not that I have a dog in the fight, but I'm frustrated because I want to see one team beat another team. The same way Washington beat Detroit, in the same way you saw Buffalo beat Baltimore, and I would say to a large degree the same thing with Philadelphia and the Rams.
Okay, well, I mean, it's not like the Vikings for sure would have beaten the Rams at Arizona if the Stafford didn't complete. That was a scoop and score by Blake Cashman. Yeah, it's not like the Vikings for sure would have won, but it wouldn't have hurt the cause, and it was a controversial officiating moment.
I did not agree with that call at all.
Why?
I thought that was absolutely. Well, I thought it was a fumble.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, like that's my point. You know, and so there's going to have to be some rules changes. They're going to have at the owners' meetings this offseason. There's going to have to be some things that are looked at because I do think replay. We're going to have them come in and decide an inch or a yard sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, let's get on with it, right? I know you're like that in the booth when you're calling these games. Like, come on now, let's get to the. But and they have sped that process up some. But I do think that we've got a multi-billion-dollar business here. We can go ahead and if the referees are allowed to miss a call, I'm not blaming all of this on them. They're split-second decisions. Like a lot of these, even helmet, hits to the, illegal hits. You might want to go back and take a look at it. I saw a face mask penalty in the game this weekend where the guy just grabbed him down by the shoulder pads. I forget which one of the games it was, but it was not a face mask. You know what I'm saying? And yet it got called. So you can allow replay to correct some of their mistakes. There's nothing wrong with that, I don't think.
Now, back in the day, not only was Corey one of the most respected guys within the locker room, he personified being a bona fide team leader. And what goes into that, potentially, like say you were a Raven yesterday, Corey Chavous with the Ravens, and then the game's over the way it is. What do you say to Mark Andrews in private after the game?
Well, I think Lamar handled it well because I think he shifted the focus back to his mistakes. Same thing with Goff. And I think you, as the leaders of the football team, you have to concentrate on what we did. And I think probably one of the worst calls that you had to endure was the year that we actually lost the entire division, a home playoff game on the last play of the season. And one of the things that I remember, one of the people I'm pretty close with was Mean Joe Green. And he coached for the Cardinals. And we typically would always spend a lot of time together when I was with the Cardinals. And so after the game, he specifically found me. And he said, he told me y'all weren't good enough. He didn't say you messed up or Denard wasn't good enough, whoever it was on that play or, McKay. He said you weren't good enough. And that's really what I think it comes down to. Regardless of how it happened, in those situations, the team wasn't good enough, and that's the reason why you lost the game. And I do understand in this new era of social media, sometimes you're going to get a lot of verdicts from a number of different people, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Because you always had that even back in the day that's just good journalism to give different viewpoints. That's why it's called an editorial, right? But I don't think that by any means it's all on Mark Andrews. He had, 5 catches, 61 yards, made some clutch catches on that drive to keep it going.
Right.
So, and he's been so integral in them getting there.
How, Shedeur Sanders, how well do you think Shedeur will do in the NFL?
It's just going to come down to timing, Paul. Like, I really believe it. For him, you're going to have to recalibrate your mind in terms of when you get rid of the football. And it didn't have to be to the level, for example, some of these timing offenses we've been talking about this morning. But you can still have some level of creativity in it. Maybe not to the level of Cam Ward, who I think is, a little bit more basketball on grass in the pocket to a degree. I think from a toughness perspective, you just won't find anybody tougher than Shedeur in the pocket. The number of hits that he's taken, I'm kind of concerned about that because you just can't take those hits holding the ball at the next level. So that's something he's going to have to improve, just how you're much more efficient and trusting your offensive line a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? Like, which I think he trusted him as much as he could, but he took a lot of hits in school, and some of it was his own doing.
Chavous.
Shedeur's dad, Dion. Imagine if Dion coached the Cowboys. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but Dion and Jerry Jones having to share a microphone. I mean, that's Big D folly in its own right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But, I think that would actually be good, Paul, because at least now you've got an opportunity to take some of the focus off of Jerry, which I think Jerry made it pretty clear. Who cares what you think? I bought the team. I can do whatever I want, right? So, but now, at least if you have Deion there, some of it will be altered off him. I don't know how much he liked that. I do think some other candidates would be good for that team, though. Imagine Aaron Glenn. I mean, you covered this Lions team for forever in terms of going against them and kind of studying what Glenn does. Imagine Glenn's defense in Dallas.
Yeah.
So I know that the Ben Johnson hire will be a little bit better, and maybe even Deion. But I just think Aaron Glenn is somebody that, and also a guy that played in Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that wouldn't be a bad. I don't think that would be a bad move at all as well.
Hey, Corey, with that Rams-Eagles game yesterday, do you ever remember playing on a field like Lincoln Financial with the snow and everything?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I played on one like that. I think it was snow flurries at least, or I don't remember how snowy it was. It was the last game of the season. It was in Green Bay, and it was when I was with the Cardinals. And I don't remember what year it was. I mean, these years start running together, Paul, but it might have been my third year in the league. And so, yeah, it makes for a pretty fun game. We kind of were wanting it to be a little bit more snowy. Obviously, coming from Arizona, you know what I'm saying? So, and we had a pretty fun group of defensive backs, so we were hoping it would snow, I think, a little bit more. But I'm pretty sure it was snowing in that game. A lot of rain games I had with kind of the colder weather, but that was the one game I remember that had some snow.
So with cold and snow, it's coming from Arizona by way of Nashville, by way of South Carolina. So, I mean, you run out of the tunnel. It's like, hello, holy cow, you know.
Well, I spent a little bit of time in Denver though with my uncle, so I was a little bit more adjusted to the cold, and I love the cold actually. I wish we could have played more games outside. You know, that was something that I actually enjoyed. The only thing you don't like about the cold is trying to keep your hands warm. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it just feels so open in the cold. I feel like I could just run forever. I even like to run in the cold sometimes to this day, Paul. It's pretty cool.
Well, I got, it's Puka Nacua. Now, he played at Brigham Young University, so I'm sure there was some cold and wind and maybe even some snow. But there were moments out there when it was getting cold and the snow was coming down. I was like, hey, yeah, I'm not sure Puka's really embracing the elements here with these extra blocks and chips and everything because it hurts, Hey.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of talk. He got a lot of. They threw the ball to him a lot yesterday. Sometimes I was wondering where some of the other guys were on the field. It seemed like it was just him and Higbee out there. He was throwing the football to.
Hey, Ohio State and Notre Dame and the national championship. What's compelling to you about that game, and who do you think's going to win?
I think if they can shorten the game, like the Notre Dame game against Ohio State a year ago, kind of came down to the wire, and they just lost it. Both defenses are fantastic. I had a chance to see both. What I saw Ohio State play a couple of times. I went to go see them play Michigan a year ago, and then this year I watched them against Texas. One of the things I think that you could take advantage of, your Marcus Freeman, is shortening the game. Kind of what we were talking about with Detroit.
Yeah.
Not because you're compromised as much on defense. In this case, that's your strength to a large degree. Now you want to kind of complement your offense more because you can't score with Ohio State. And what you can do, though, is get first downs with Riley Leonard and his legs, making sure you get Jeremiah Love involved. And then I think their offensive line has to have a good game. This defensive front for Ohio State is absolutely stacked. And you're going to have to, on the other side, Howard Cross is going to have a big game against the Ohio State offensive line. And remember, that offensive line went through some things this year. Josh Williams, he went out early in the season. Josh Simmons, and I thought he was one of their better players. They lost him after Game 7. And then they ended up moving their guard, Donovan Jackson, out to left tackle. He settled in pretty well out there, and that's allowed their line to move. Flyers playing the right tackle position now, and then they've got Hensman and Montgomery inside and Shabola, and they really have kind of come together. Now, it's going to be important for them to stop the run in this game and take that away first in terms of what Notre Dame's defense needs to do. And they're going to have to do that by playing man coverage. That's going to be the game. Can those corners cover the Ohio State receivers.
Time for two more.
Chavous.
Haven't heard much from my beloved friend of late, like I did in the NBA postseason last year about those Dallas Mavericks, your favorite team. Must have some injuries or something down there, right?
No. See, you did that on purpose. You know my favorite team, man, is Detroit Pistons.
Oh, that's a good point.
My favorite thing.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
You know that back.
No.
I remember that back when
Right.
man, you were going to the Timberwolves camp back in the early 2000s.
Right.
You know I'm a Pistons guy.
Right.
But the Mavericks have had some injuries, and they really. I would say you won. I would say a couple. They're just not on the level to me of Oklahoma City. I think they're pretty much one of the. I would have to say right now at 35-7. I think they've kind of established themselves as the front runners a little bit in the West to a large degree. Although they've got pretty good competition all the way through that conference. But in terms of my team, Detroit,
Yeah.
we've kind of fallen off as of late. I think we lost 3 out of 5, and we had won like 10 out of. We were 10-2 prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a tough stretch for us this time of the year, in terms of this part of the year, and it's going to test us before the All-Star break because we're going to be on the road a little bit more coming up here shortly.
All right. Now, I wanted to conclude with the local football team, and you just stream your consciousness wherever it goes. What didn't you like about the Vikings 2-game finish?
Well, I mean, I would just say that probably the one thing I wanted to see, first of all, one of the big things is, and then the last game, I did feel like we could have seen Akers a little bit more in terms of he kind of got. I thought he ran the ball pretty well in those 2 games. You could have rolled that a little bit more, just as more of an alternative to maybe some of the things that were happening, particularly in the red zone. And even when I went to see y'all play, I felt like he showed me a little bit in terms of just he seemed to be coming back into the previous form of before he came to Minnesota. I felt like overall, though, particularly in the Rams game, just being able to slow that game down a little bit after they came out as aggressively as they did on the early portion of the drive. I thought that would have been I thought that was also something that could have been a little bit of a recipe. Those are some of the things that I thought may have had an impact on the game.
You're the very best. That was fantastic. Thank you very much for the time. We'll stay in touch off the radio and have you back on the radio as soon as possible whenever you have time, all right?
Absolutely, man. I really enjoyed it, Paul, and I know you can't wait for this national championship game tonight. Who do you have? I got to put you on the spot before we get off of there.
Notre Dame, money line. It's not a game. It's a retirement fund.
All right, that's what I'm talking about.
I'll call you later.
Y'all just go. All right, you take care. Thank you.
See you, bud. That's Corey Chavous.
Chavous.
One of the, in my run with the Minnesota Vikings, one of the most learned and dynamite true leaders that I've come across. Corey was fantastic and still is with his football knowledge. Thank you, Corey. And thank you for listening to 9 to Noon, courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. What's on deck 9 to Noon includes Vikes Bites, a couple of segments from now. The analyst for the Vikings Radio Network on Us and Everybody Else at about 10:03. The columnist at about 11:03. And much more during the course of the 9 to Noon run on MLK Day at FM 100.3 KFAN. When we return, we hear from 9 to Noon quasi-regular Parker Fox, the power forward for the Golden Gophers basketball team at the Hawkeyes tomorrow night. Nordo produces, and I'm Paul Allen. Good morning. You're listening to KFAN.
It just drives me absolutely batty.
Oh, good.
Man.
9 to Noon continues on this MLK Monday, and welcome back. It's Paul Allen by your side. The Golden Gophers basketball team is at Iowa tomorrow night, and joining us now is Gophers forward and co-host of Howlin' with the Homies. He's our friend Parker Fox. That Garcia walk-off win last Thursday against ranked Michigan, I mean, that had to feel so good, my brother, and good morning.
Good morning to you too, PA. Yeah, no doubt. It was kind of that weight lifted off of your shoulder almost. We felt like we were playing some really good basketball, but, just wasn't able to quite finish out games. And then, you put it in the hands of your best player to make a shot with 0 seconds left on the clock, and he does so. And, what a fun way to do it against a top 25 opponent.
That double overtime meat grinder game that you had against Ohio State recently. Holy cow, that was a meat grinder, wasn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. That's a team that plays really fast. They're really highly skilled. They got 5 guys at all the positions that can really play. And we thought we played a really good game. We thought we did some really good things defensively, and we thought we executed our offensive sets really well. And then sometimes the free throws don't bounce in, and the ball doesn't bounce the right way, and that's just how it goes sometimes, and you got to find a way to regroup. And unfortunately, it happens with the loss, but we found a way to regroup, and then obviously bounce back against Michigan. But you're going to have those games. It's high level competition. Things aren't going to go your way all the time, and you can't dread on it, because it'll snowball, and it'll it's like a domino effect, and you don't want the domino effect to happen negatively. You want it to happen positively, and hopefully we've kind of flipped that script, and we can kind of get that thing going the right way.
Hey, Parker, after the Michigan win, or in the late stages of the Michigan win, the kid for the Wolverines scores on Garcia. Then you come back the other way. Garcia wins it from the logo. It was a super cool moment. What was the barn like? Not only for the evening, but like in the latter stages when you guys won that game.
Yeah, I think for the crowd that was there, they were intense, and then they were in it. I think we keep preaching, just stay with us, fans. We just want the fans to stay with us, because I know that when the barn is packed and when it's rocking, it's one of the most unique and fun experiences in college basketball. And yeah, we've dropped a couple, and the fans haven't been as lively as they've been in the past, but the crowd that was there was electric, and we can't say enough great things about that crowd that was there, and we hope that bouncing back. I think it's next Saturday we have Oregon, the new team entering the conference, that we're going to have an awesome crowd. But Minnesota knows their basketball, and we have some pretty awesome fans, and we're hoping that we can kind of keep that thing rocking and keep the barn packed.
What did Coach Johnson say to you guys after that game? I mean, the walk-off heave snapped a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a unique, situation, because we're losing and things aren't going our way, and we're having these player meetings, and we as a group believe that we have such a great group. Like, we didn't believe we were an 0-5 or 0-6 conference basketball team, so we just wanted one thing to kind of fall our way. So I think Coach Johnson just kind of preached what he's been preaching for the last 5-6 games, is just continue to stay with it, trust one another, trust us. Be 10 toes in, be all the way bought in, and if you are, things are going to happen, the right way, and things are going to go your way. And obviously, that's a, dang near half court heave, but we trust a guy like Dawson Garcia to have the ball in his hands in those moments. There's no one else we'd rather have the ball in his hands. So, he makes a heck of a shot, but I think it's more than just that shot. It's that continual trust over time. That this thing is going to work its way out.
That Dawson Garcia, that's your dog too. I mean, I remember meeting him in the in a suite at a Vikings game a couple of seasons ago, courtesy of you. And on that play, he asked for the ball all the way up the court, and I'm really happy he got it. I mean, seriously, might have been a problem if he didn't get that chance to win it from the edge of the M, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I think, Dawson's a guy that just does it right. Like, every day in practice, he brings the right energy. Every film session, every little thing on the court. Like, there's so many instances within a basketball game that you can kind of, take a play off or take an instance off. Dawson doesn't. Like, Dawson's always locked in mentally, physically, and, obviously he's trailing the play, asking for the ball, and Lukai does a good job being the point guard and getting it to him, and, things ended up working out for him that time.
So after that, and then on to the Iowa Challenge tomorrow evening with Parker Fox, 9 to noon, and KFAN Howler with the homies, friend. Also a forward for the Golden Gophers basketball team. The day after, so last Friday, what was the super special, exclusive, athletes only cafeteria like the next day? Did all the athletic, skilled kids give you guys some much deserved love?
Unfortunately, we're closed for the the off the non.
Oh, come on.
What is it? No school right now. Me, I'm old. I'm not even taking classes really anyways, but I guess the other people are off of school. But we did see some people around the facility. Unfortunately, the cafeteria is closed, so we're kind of on our own for food. But we did see some people around, some of the hockey guys lingering in and out. But that's the kind of unfortunate thing about when school's out. You don't get that camaraderie, that love. There's no fans, and there's no student fans in the crowd. There's no student section, so it's really just a weird time to be a kind of a college athlete. It almost feels like you're more of a professional athlete because there isn't as many outside resources and people around you. But I think students will be coming back, and school starts up on Tuesday. So hopefully we'll still hear some buzz, and hopefully the Garcia Love will be, in the building come tomorrow, Tuesday.
Isn't it funny how it works, Parker Fox? Where say you lose one by 20, or you lose a spine tingler. The exclusive, super special, athletes-only cafeteria is packed at that time, right? People are like looking the other way. They don't know what to say. But when you walk off against a ranked team, crickets can't find anybody.
Oh, I know. It's the best. And I think it's I've experienced it for a couple of years now, and it's the same way for football. Football goes in and wins a huge game against whoever they win against, like that USC game last year, a huge night game. And 2 days, fast forward to a Monday, and you get to see Coy Parrish in there all, with smiles on his face, and Max Grossmer, who just threw 3 touchdowns with smiles on his face. And it's an awesome, I think every college athlete deserves that, and I think it's a tough thing because you don't want to get, too wrapped up in it. You want to be able to kind of move on to the next one, and the next one's just as important as the one you just played. But at the same time, we're still, for my teammates and myself, we're still young college kids, and it's like you want to enjoy that camaraderie with your peers. And I think it's a pretty cool, special thing that the U does to kind of put us all in one space there and have that space where we can kind of interact and meet new people, create friendships. And I think you deserve those big moments when you make them.
Iowa tomorrow night. The Hawkeyes haven't lost at home in 5 weeks. What's challenging with the Hawks?
Yeah, they just play with a lot of speed. They play with a lot of offensive identity. They aren't a team that's going to grind you out defensively and grind deep into possessions. They're a team that's going to really get the ball off the floor quick. They're going to shoot a lot of threes. They have a lot of really good shooters, and then they're going to really make you pay with their back cutting, their curls. Everything they do offensively is so quick and so technical that it becomes really hard to guard. So for us as a team that kind of wants to slow things down and grind it out defensively, it's kind of polar opposites. Our biggest thing is going to have to be just being disciplined and poised defensively. If we're able to do that, we're going to be able to execute things in the half-court offense really well. So we owe them one too. We were up 20 at halftime at their place last year on Super Bowl Sunday, the day Caitlin Clark was setting the scoring record. So it was a absolutely dead crowd inside of Carver Hawkeye Arena. So I think this time come around, they're going to have a little bit of a better crowd, and we're going to be able to, kind of feed off that energy, and hopefully we're able to execute things well and come out with a W.
And for you, Parker Fox, how is your final collegiate season going?
Oh, it's going great. I think, anytime, you come back for one more, you want everything great and positive to happen, right? And you know that it's always not going to be that way. There's going to be bumps in the roads, and I've had some really awesome moments, and I've had some not so awesome moments. So I think just kind of learning off of those and realizing that, this is such a blessing that I get to still do this, and I get to go to these, awesome arenas. We played at Assembly Hall, and, we played a tournament down at the ESPN Event Center in Florida, and all that kind of stuff. It's just so special that I get to do it. And then you have these big games against Ohio State where I had 21 points, and it's just like it reminds you that you can still kind of do this. So I think it's for me, it's just a blessing that I get to still do this and do it with some amazing teammates and amazing coaches, and I'm loving every minute of it. And I think if you put yourself in position to help your team win, whatever way that looks like, it might be rebounding one game, it might be passing, it might be scoring. At the end of the day, that's my goal, is to put this team in position to win basketball games.
That's beautiful. Last one outside of the Covenant. Bills at Chiefs, Washington at Philly. What Super Bowl pairing are you hoping for, or couldn't you care less because your squad is dead?
Well, the squad being dead hurts. I think as a football fan though, we got a pretty special, 2 games coming up. I think Jaden Daniels is going to put on a really great show in Philly. From what I've seen, no hate to Hurts, but I think he's the better quarterback in that matchup, and their offense is potent, man. They got a lot of special things going on in Washington. So I'm picking Washington to come out of Philly. I know that's the upset. I know the weather, the climate is going to be a little difficult for those guys, but I'm picking Washington to come out of there. And then, going into Kansas City, we all think it's, you can't beat those guys, and the Bills didn't look great, last night against the Ravens, but they got it done. I just got to go with Kansas City. I think they just got too much power, too much size, and playing at home in front of Taylor Swift and Caitlin Clark isn't bad either, huh?
Safe travels, my friend. Bless you and Taylor, and glad everything's going well. Look forward to seeing you in studio sometime soon, okay?
We'll see you soon, Pierre.
Later, man. Parker Fox. He puts the power and power forward for Ben Johnson's Golden Gophers basketball team at Iowa tomorrow evening. Vikes Bites are next. It's 9 to noon at FM 100.3 KFAN. Hey, the Nords.
Hey.
I voted Chiefs Commanders.
Ooh.
In your baby poll at Mad Producer 1 via the X machine, via Twitter. It was from yesterday. Quick twitch. What's it going to be in the Super Bowl? Bills, Eagles, Bills, Commanders, Chiefs, Eagles. I voted Chiefs Commanders for some reason. Only 7.5% of the vote. Where did your pen fall?
Well, right now I think it's going to be Chiefs Eagles. That's just where my head's at on it. And what Washington was able to do against Detroit, I think there's an exhilaration factor there that might lead to an emotional come down over the course of the week into the NFC title game. Although Washington has proven, and specifically Jaden Daniels, he just doesn't care. He doesn't care about the moment. He doesn't care about the stage. He's going to go out and, how good, we were talking before the show, how good just to sit down and as a football fan, enjoy what Jaden Daniels was doing. At this stage, though, it's very chalky. I know that. I just think at this stage that the Chiefs are going to get over the hump at home, and I believe the Eagles will as well. But yeah, there's still plenty of time if you want to vote and participate in what that Super Bowl is going to look like. And sadly, regardless of who you think's going to be in it from the games we watched over the weekend, one team that will not be part of the mix, PA, is the Minnesota Vikings, which brings us to Vikes Bites! Thanks to my buddies at Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. You can shop online. A box of meat will show up at your doorstep, and you can also find Thousand Hills and their delicious products at your local Coburns and Co-op locations. Now, with that said, this is kind of and we got so many things to dig into with this football team, but I was watching the game and I had to check my, I wanted to see where this particular player was, and it turns out he's a Commander now.
Madison motions to the backfield. Cousins out of the shotgun with no timeouts, trailing 24-21. Takes the snap, straight drop. He's going to fire right. Yes! KJ Osborne! You're so cold-blooded! Touchdown! Vikings have taken a 27-24 lead.
So KJ Osborne, now he was not active for either of the two Commanders playoff games. So we'll get to that. But 15 TDs over his final 3 seasons here, and there was kind of an emotional element to it. I remember locker clean-out day following the 2023. He talked a bit about, well, this is a big moment for my family, and clearly he was alluding to free agency and the chance to get a contract, and it's probably not going to be in Minnesota. Best of luck in future endeavors, Mr. Osborne. So he goes to an incredibly talent-deficient New England Patriots team and just wasn't able to latch on, PA. He was inactive for a bunch of games. They only played in a total of 7 and started 4, had a total of, my goodness, this is not good, 7 catches for 57 yards and 1 TD. That was his experience with the Patriots. Now, he's let go and ultimately picked up by the Commanders. He was active for just 1 game towards the end of the regular season, has not been active, but he's a part of Washington's team. Where all this is going, PA, and it's not, I know you haven't been watching every snap of Osborne's work in 2024. Does it surprise you at all in the way that he fell off? And it's always beauty's in the eye of the beholder. we probably value a KJ Osborne or maybe a Jalen Naylor currently. We value those individuals more so maybe than anyone else in the league will, just because he's our guy and we watch him all the time.
Right.
I am a little shocked that he wasn't able to make plays, wasn't able to find his way with such a talent-poor roster in New England, and now he's kind of still grasping at straws for an opportunity with the Commanders. That just kind of surprised me.
KJ came, that highlight that you heard happens to be the last time the Minnesota Vikings beat the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
So walk-off KJ, basically a walk-off. KJ can do a lot of things. He's not just naturally super fast. So, like, you look at the replacement here, Jalen Naylor had those 6 touchdowns, and Jalen is faster than KJ. So in the quest to find as much speed as you can for your skill guys, now look at Washington. I mean, Jamison Crowder is fast. Curtis Samuel, he's a trick, but he's fast. Then you get, McLaurin is not super fast, but he's just a super tough customer with the way he executes his overall game. So it's like KJ's good here, but maybe not good enough for this team. Good here at this, but maybe that's not exactly what they want. He's just in a weird spot.
Vikes Bites! Thank you, Thousand Hills. And I actually think this final bit here is going to be something that we expand on, whether it's talking with Pete and throughout our conversations, really moving through the playoffs, is what do you think a guy like KO, or maybe what do you, and I could speak to what I've kind of taken from it, and it's an awful spot, but you're sitting there now, you have your favorite team, you coach a team, you play for a team, and now you're sitting on the couch watching these other teams. You're watching, again, Jaden Daniels completely unflappable on a massive stage. You're watching the Chiefs if you needed the Houston Texans to cover and you saw that Fairbairn kicking catastrophe culminated with that block at the end to keep it at 9.
Yep.
Ooh, that's awful territory to be in.
Yep.
But you're watching Barkley get loose, and then the drama, even just Stafford wouldn't quit, and they didn't have it. But in the end, I mean, that catch to Puka, I thought the Rams were onto something to nip that at the wire. They didn't. But you watch these games, and it's like, why am I not there, right? There's got to be that self-reflection period, or you're taking something. Again, run games and offensive lines right now are two things that I'm really sinking my teeth into from these playoff teams that are still in the mix. Mm-hmm. How do you think a Kevin O'Connell or coaches digest those sorts of things once their season ends?
It's a wonderful question, because I don't have a lot of experience of spending time with coaches right after seasons, watching games. But I have done that before. And I'm not saying this is Kevin O'Connell, but I mean, they're as bitter can be. And it's like, well, and not a lot of this stuff. In fact, I really haven't noticed any of it with this 3-year regime, where it's like, all right, well, how are you supposed to bleeping win with this guy? Or how are you supposed to do it with this draft? It's not a lot of finger pointing or back talking with this group, but it's there's a bitterness because you're seeing things that you can do that work, but you don't have a chance to do them. Maybe you get back to that Lions game if you're an offensive coach and you're kind of like, man, I mean, there were 4 or 5 touchdowns that we could have had to be in that spot and we didn't get them. So maybe it's a therapeutic Davenport of love experience for a lot of these coaches, where they're just able to get things off their chests within the privacy of their covenants, and then get back and move on and try to fortify things and make them stronger. But there are also plays to be stolen, and this is not saying, well, everybody steals plays. All right, so let's just put it that way. That Ben Johnson concoction, where the running back flipped to Amon-Ra St. Brown on a shovel pass. I mean, I don't know if that's ever been done in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
It was fresh. So, it's like when Too Much Time for Teddy came in. There was a play, his final play, they were a 100% run team on that play. All right? And so, therefore, you see Commanders, you got 6-7 around the box. All right before the play, here come 2 more. So now they got like 9 guys around the line going, we know you're not going to let that guy throw. He's been there 3 weeks.
He was coaching high school football.
He's been there 3 weeks. He's not throwing the ball. So what do? they run Jameson on the end around.
Yeah.
Coming from right to left, and then he circumnavigates all the way to the right, gets to the end zone. So it's a different way. It's like, we know you're going to run, but it was a different way to do what they knew was coming.
Yeah.
Just things like that stick out to me.
Vikes Bites, thank you, Thousand Hills. Again, local Coburns, local co-op locations, and they're proud sponsors of Gophers Athletics, PA.
Pete Bursich is the analyst for the Minnesota Vikings Radio Network. We'll chat some ball with the analyst around the corner at FM 100.3 KFAN.